Hi everyone, I'm Mara Webster with SAG-AFTRA Foundation, here for another one of our conversations at home. I want to continue reminding everyone that we are raising money with our COVID-19 fund for SAG-AFTRA members who are currently out of work due to all of the closed film and television productions at the moment. So please check out the link below this video and consider donating if you're able to support in any way. I don't know if you guys have been watching Little Fires Everywhere, but we are so thrilled today to be joined by Jordan Elsass, who plays Trip in the show and is so fantastic in it. I wanted to kind of just ask how you're doing. You said you're hunkered down in Austin with your family. How has your day-to-day been different since all of this kicked off?
Man, I gotta say it's definitely a change because I'm so used to being out and about and so used to being like, now I'm gonna do this, now I'm gonna go here and you know, let's go kayak on the lake, let's go do this. And it's just, I'm always out with friends and I'm just a very social person. And so it's a big change, but it's kind of nice because I've started to realize that there's nothing wrong with just having a day at the house, and it really can you get things done that you didn't even realize you needed to get done. You know what I mean? Like you'll be at the house and be like, man, I haven't texted that person in a while. Like I want to check on them and see how they're doing. And then you can do that. And it's not so just like everything's a rush and everything's going by. But there's been a lot of changes. I mean, it's, a lot of different activities that I've had to sort of indulge in to keep myself occupied. Whether that's reading a book or playing video games. I was hopping on actually yesterday with my buddy Gavin, who plays Moody in the show, and he played my brother in the show, and me and him are like super tight in real life, and so we hopped on and we were playing some Call of Duty, and so just it's a change for sure, but for the best. I think it's nice to be able to have that change of pace every once in a while, even if I'm being forced to have that change of pace, which I don't like being forced to do anything, but it's part of the safety situation right now. So got to keep everyone else safe. Even if I'm like, you know what, I think I'd be fine if I got this virus. It's still like trying to keep the parents safe, grandparents. And that's pretty much, we all have to play our part, and we all have to, stay at home and just hope that this all goes away soon. It's pretty much all we can do.
That's great. Well, I'm so glad that you and your family are safely hunkered down there. I wanted to talk a little bit about self-taping, actually, because everyone's obviously self-taping auditions at the moment, and I know that's
totally
your first round of auditioning for Little Fires Everywhere was actually recording a self-tape, and I was curious kind of about what scene it was that you were doing and the way in which you found for yourself that was really useful in putting that together, deciding which take you were going to send, and just what works for you in that medium.
Yeah, absolutely. So self-tapes are really rough. Like self-tapes, to me, I think self-tapes are the most discouraging form of audition. I mean, you can walk into a room and the casting director, and it's like they're like, here's this cold read, and that's really nerve-wracking. But self-tapes are just a whole different ball game. I mean, they can be so discouraging. You're like, no one's ever going to see this. This is a huge movie. There's no way I'll ever get a call back, much less book it. And the truth is that you have to find a way to stand out. And with Little Fires, the way that I did that is, so again, me personally, I beat myself up over everything. So I remember when my mom came downstairs and she's like, here's the sides for this. It's Reese Witherspoon, Kerry Washington, you'd be playing Reese's son. And I was like, this is insane. This is ridiculous. Like, there's no way that I'm going to get this no matter what. And so, I start kind of going over the lines and I start kind of reading it. And I remember the first scene. So it was two scenes. It was the Halloween party scene with me and Moody, with when I had the mustache and, I ripped the name tag off his chest and I'm like, you got to do this to get Pearl. And then the other scene was the Swingset scene with Pearl, where I'm sort of being like, hey, I've never felt this way about a girl before. And I'm trying to remember, I believe that I did the scene with the Pearl Swingset scene first, because there's something about that scene that sort of resonated with me, and I felt as though I could really make that one stand out. And I think that was the first scene anyways that I was supposed to do. And which is funny because it was the heavier, less lighthearted scene that took a little more fleshing it out and diving into the scene. And I think I'm trying to remember if I did anything specifically to stand out in that particular scene. I went over it a ton, because there was something about that scene that I just couldn't, it finally clicked. And sometimes you have to kind of read a scene over and over and over, but you don't want to over rehearse either. You know what I mean? And so when you read a scene over and over and over, if you're kind of doing it in your head, then end up over rehearsing it, even if you're not practicing it in the mirror with yourself. You know, you might end up sort of over rehearsing it without even meaning to. And so I wanted to steer clear of that. And instead, I just wanted to kind of absorb the lines and figure out what was going on in the scene, and almost look at it as if I was reading a book. You know, I didn't want to look at it like, this is me, I'm about to perform. I kind of just wanted to absorb it and take it in first, so I fully understood what was going on in the scene and get as much context for the scene as I could. And then I just dove right in. And then I knocked out the other scene with Gavin too. And in terms of like picking which take I was going to use of those scenes, I mean, my best advice is to get someone that maybe is big into film or big into acting, another actor or actress even, but somebody that's going to be a little less biased than you, and somebody that can just kind of, you know, third party, just look at it from a totally different perspective and be like, that's the one I think that, and then hopefully maybe you find one that kind of lines up and you're like, I really like this one. And then they're like, I really like this one. And that's the one you send in. But in my case, it's easy because, you know, living with the parents. So I just get my mom to help me out with that. And then sometimes we'll kind of argue a little bit and be like, nah, but I like this one because I did this. And then like, that was a cool choice. And she'll be like, yeah, but I really like this one because you did this. And I'll be like, so, you know, you gotta, that's my best advice to somebody doing self-tapes, is you always get that outside perspective of someone that, and I would say even it's kind of nice to have someone that's not an actor too, because then you really, I mean, that's truly a completely outside perspective. And that's what I like about having my mom, is she's big into film and TV and watching shows, but she's, you know, not an actress. So it's nice to have that perspective.
So I was just really curious how you ended up connecting with them before you'd even walked into the room together, and the ways in which that was a really useful tool for you once you stepped into the audition room.
Absolutely. No, that's always, I mean, that's a huge thing for me, is I love to know people going into a situation, whether it's a job or whether it's just an outside world, depending on the situation. I just like to know the people beforehand. So with Lexi, I was able to get in contact with her because she is with the same, or was with the same agency as me. And then the same manager as well. And I believe, actually, that could be wrong, but I'm almost positive. Anyways, for sure had the same agents as me. And so I was able to get connected with her. And so David Rubin's casting office is right above the farmer's market near the Grove over in LA. And so, you know, we met at me and Lexi met at the farmer's market downstairs beforehand, and we hung out and we were just kind of talking and ran over However, then you got Gavin, right? And me and Gavin ended up being super tight over the duration. Like I said earlier, over the duration of the show, we you know, grew really close. But I had no way of contacting Gavin before we had actually started, before I booked it. And, you know, we actually started working on the show, you know? So when we got up to the room, there was another kid in there running his scene with Lexi, and Gavin was out in the waiting room. And I introduced myself and I was like, hi, I'm Jordan. I'm here reading for Trip. And I was like, would you like to run lines outside? And he was like, absolutely. So we go outside in the hallway and we're running the scene, and it's the exact same scene for the self-tape. It's the Halloween party scene. And I remember we were running it and we were just having a really good time playing around with the scene. And then David Rubin like came outside. There was this little like side door to the office, and he's like, what are you guys doing? Be quiet. And we were like, oh, I'm so sorry. And we were apparently being kind of loud, but you know, we were just having fun playing around, and you know, we apologized and moved somewhere else.
You very intentionally chose not to read the book until after you'd finished production. And, you know, I know you've talked a little bit about with your process with television scripts that you actually, even if all the scripts were available at the beginning, you prefer this to have a little bit of the journey at a time. And I was curious why you like to work in that specific way and what that really helps you to navigate in terms of figuring out your character and the journey that they're going on.
Absolutely. I think that, so life is so unexpected. You know what I mean? There are things that happen that we try to plan things in life and they don't rarely ever go our way. And, you know, perfectly go our way, I should say. And just by the book, it's often life goes off on rabbit trails and crazy things happen that are totally unpredictable and unexpected. And I think that I sort of like to think of, especially television shows, because they often span a lot longer than a single feature film, you know, a movie or especially a short film.
I was also curious in the way that music is part of your process, because I know, you know, set in the 90s. But
Right.
you created a playlist for that. But it sounds like that's actually something that you've done on previous projects. So I was really interested in the ways in which that helps you to find your character.
It does. So I worked on a project. It was not an original idea. I've heard of a lot of people doing this, a lot of other actors, but I wouldn't say a lot of other actors, but there's a fair number. I know Lexi did it for Pearl, and I think Gavin did it for Moody. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a somewhat common thing, I think, now more than ever. But a few years ago, when I was maybe 14, 15, I worked on a project on a feature film called Discreet, and fantastic movie. And there was an actor, and I'm totally blanking on his name. Fantastic actor, totally blanked on his name. Yeah, I mean, he was awesome. He was really, really, I looked up to him a lot, and I can't even remember his name. So maybe I didn't look up to him that much. But no, he was. Yeah, come again?
We've all got quarantine brain of mush right now.
Right. It's just mush. It's turning to mush. But anyways, he was a lead in it, and I remember one day I caught him listening to a band that I actually had on my playlist, Nirvana. And he was listening to Nirvana right before he did this big scene between us. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, holds it up. And, I mean, it was it was like a really basic Nirvana song. It was like Smells Like Teen Spirit or something like that. And I was just like, well, that's funny. Why are you listening to music before this big scene? Isn't that going to take you out of it or distract you or throw you off? And he's like, no, this puts me into it, because music, and I understood immediately what he meant, because for me, music can put me in a whole different mindset. Just being a sort of artistic person, I feel like music can, and this is anybody. This isn't just somebody that's like, oh, I'm super artistic, I'm a really artsy person. This is anybody. I mean, really, music can, whether you even realize it or not, change your mood, change your perception of things, even if it's just mildly, and it just 10% difference, and he was like, this is going to help me get into this scene and get into character more, because it makes me feel this way. This song reminds me of this, and it brings back these memories, and it brings back this emotion. And so I create a playlist sort of going off, not just what would my character listen to. Yes, that, but also maybe this song right before this exact scene, put in the AirPods, play it, and it brings back this memory of, oh, this is what this song reminds me of. I'm feeling a bit sad now. This is going to help me get more into this. And you have to, and it's not just, you have to work with the music, because if you know in advance that this song's going to make me feel sad, if you plug in your headphones, you can resist, without even realizing, you can resist feeling sad. So you kind of have to work with it and let it flow, and want to feel that, just sort of let it out and let it at the same time. And that's how it was for me, at least. But music for sure has my life, and so it really is one of the most pleasurable experiences to be able to throw in headphones at your job right before you're doing some huge scene for work, and be like, I'm going to listen to this song that just brings back these amazing memories for me, or these really sad and tragic memories for me. I mean, it's just, that's one of the coolest parts for me, and that's when I'm really reminded of how awesome my job is when I'm like right about to get into this huge emotional scene, and I throw in the headphones and I'm just listening to this song. And I really find that helps me a lot, for sure. Music's a big of my process.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you a little bit about the stunt work in the show, because there's one of the later episodes where you got to do some stunt work, and you actually got to do it yourself as well. So I was interested in how that was a new challenge and a new way of working for you.
Totally. Yeah. So that was the first time that I'd really gotten to do my own stunts. And I remember they hired 2 stunt doubles, one for me and one for Gavin. And we were running through this scene, and, getting ready to shoot it. They had it set up, and we were getting really close. And then I was kind of like, so are we like doing it? Are we just going to go for it? And everybody was just kind of looking around like, I guess you are. And so we got down, and we're just like ready. And they're like, and then the stunt doubles walk up, and they're like, hey, let us know if you guys need anything. And we ran through this scene, and we're doing our thing. And by the end of it, finally, we had finished shooting the scene, and we ran through this stunt choreography multiple times, probably at least 6, 7, 8 times. And it's very exhausting. I mean, it's 2 minutes of really physical exercise, is what it essentially is in this case, at least. And so we're out of breath, there's all this dust flying around because it's supposed to be winter. And so they put down snow, but there was really dust everywhere, and we had dust all on our feet, and we were coughing, and it was a blast. I mean, I had so much fun shooting that scene. But then they were like, all right, that's a wrap on this scene. We're moving on. And me and Gavin just looked at each other like, wait a minute. We were like, they didn't use Connor, and Connor was my stunt double, who I actually still talk to. He's an awesome dude. And then I blanked on again, quarantine brain. That's what we're gonna blame it on. But I blanked on the other dude's name that was Gavin's stunt double. But they were like, yeah, they didn't even need us. Like, you guys did an awesome job, and I'm looking forward to seeing that scene. I still haven't seen it yet, but I'm pumped to see it, because that was really cool knowing like that's us, and that's not a different person that looks like me from the back. It's actually me. It's cool. But that was my first time ever, I think, pretty much ever doing any kind of real quote unquote stunts myself. And then I moved on to another show. There was an Amazon Prime show called Panic, and I ended up doing some of my own stunts in that too, which was pretty cool. So I'm a regular Tom Cruise out here, I guess.
Nailed it. You'll be climbing up like tall buildings in no time.
Right. Hanging onto the side of planes while they take off, and all that craziness.
Yeah. Also, in terms of being an actor, it's obviously, you can never predict where your career is going to go. And I loved the way that you described booking the role as feeling like it was a real validation of all the work that you've been doing at point, and made you think differently about your career. So I was interested to kind of hear a little bit about how this has made you think differently about your career as an actor as a result of getting to make the show.
It's made me think of my career as a career. You know what I mean? Like, it's made me suddenly be cognizant of the fact that I could actually, this could be my life and not just a hobby or something I do on the side. And up until about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that's what I think. I mean, I loved it. I was so passionate about it, but I wasn't really acknowledging the fact that it was possible for me to potentially make this into a career. And then I finally, I booked something that was actually of a decent size and of this nature. And, working on Little Fires has totally changed my perspective completely of my career and of myself. And, it's just like, it really is super, super, super gratifying to see this now on screen, to be able to go on Hulu and watch this. And obviously, I'm not the main character. I'm not some big star or anything at all, but it's just like really cool to be able to watch everybody that you sat there and you put in work with, and knowing people behind the camera too, that worked their butts off, and just, we all really put in the work and put together this show. And, it's just, it really has changed not only how I feel about my career and everything, but it's changed my life.
Everyone has accomplished so much and really brought their best work to the foreground in it. So Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us, and looking forward to binge watching the rest of it online with you and the rest of the cast that you're tweeting along. It's so great.
Thank you.
I hope that you and your family stay safe and well.
Thank you. You guys as well. Definitely stay safe. Great talking to you.